Um, Hello, everybody. Today is Wednesday,
November 14th.
November 14, 2018, and it's almost 3 o'clock of the afternoon. So we are in the house of Meaghan Jackson, and we are actually hosted by her for some days, some weeks. And we would like to talk about homeschooling, the reality of homeschooling. And finally, here in Canada, we have this chance. And Meaghan has 3 boys. Timothy has 10 years old, right? Matthew, 8,
Yep.
and Josh, 3 years old. And so we have in front very brave mom. And I'd like to ask her a couple of questions about homeschooling. Meaghan, I know that your children didn't go to the public schools, is it right? Never, ever. So, and they have the age that I've been already mentioning. Can you tell me a little bit about ups and downs of homeschooling your children, and maybe what you've been facing when they've been small and when they turn maybe 8 and 6 years old? So if you can explain
Sure.
how the homeschooling changed maybe.
Yeah, it did definitely.
Yeah, so you can start from
From wherever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, since my boys have never been to school, they don't know the difference. But when they were younger, certainly I thought it was a lot easier because we just continued on with our natural rhythm of what we were doing during the day. And we had just a good rhythm where they would play or bake and read and play. And we just continued with that for a while. But once they get older, then you feel this pressure to actually do more with them. And there's also pressures from neighbors and friends and other homeschoolers, because where we are in Ontario, there's so much choice. And we don't have to, there's no one, the government doesn't check up on us. So we don't have to have any testing or anything. So we could really do whatever we want. And that is it's an added pressure, really. I mean, it's wonderful. That's one of the good things I like, because we can do whatever we want. That means we can customize it for our children, for their needs and what they're like. But as a mom trying to take on the job of their whole education, there's this, am I picking the right choice? Should I do it this way? And they're choosing that. And should I do it that way? So there's constantly, you have to have some confidence in yourself and flexibility to decide which way you want to go with them. So we've tried everything. We started with Waldorf and just more nature, more playing. But then when they hit a certain age and that curriculum told me I had to start directing them as the teacher, they resisted and they didn't want me to do that. So then I learned about unschooling, and we tried that, and they were naturally curious, and it was wonderful. We did interesting projects and got together with other homeschoolers, and then they sort of lost that interest and started doing nothing.
So that kind of natural curiosity of young kids that are curious about baking and nature and stones and playing with wood.
They wanted more. If I suggested something, then they took that. But if I just left them to do whatever they wanted, they didn't know what options there were. So then nothing was happening. And of course, life got in the way, because there are some people that it works great for them. But we had another child, and we have a business, and we did things. And so this year we made an agreement that we needed to do at least some basics. So they do English and math, and then the other subjects we decide as a group what are they interested in, and we do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So still, they have a lot of input into their education, which is another reason why we wanted to homeschool, because we didn't want them to be forced by someone else. This is what you have to learn when you have to learn it, and you have to all learn the same thing at the same time. Just even from my boys, one learned to read at a different age than the other. They're not the same. So we wanted them to take their own interests and learn at their own pace. But we had some input, and they're telling them a little bit more of what, make sure they actually are doing something with their time.
Yeah, I'd like to say just a little bit that having two children of 13 and 10 years old, actually I also noticed that when they've been small, they've been extra curious and turning maybe 8.
Yeah, that's when I noticed it
I
too.
have noticed that this curiosity actually been disappearing slowly, you know, even though that my children been experiencing public schools back in Switzerland. So that's why I wanted to ask the perspective of homeschooling mom, and apparently she's confirming.
Can't speak for all homeschoolers, but that's what we noticed.
Yeah, so maybe we also will have a chance to talk with some other moms, but it's an interesting point. And so did you become more like nervous about what to do after, since this curiosity been maybe disappearing, and what kind of methods to use, and where to bring them? And I think the big point is to meet up with other families. Did you notice the difference when you had them small, and what?
Oh yeah, definitely. When they were small, again, everyone was okay. Yeah, kids are supposed to play. Let's have play dates, and there was lots of play dates. But then, as soon as the kids hit 6 or 7, a lot of the homeschoolers decided to do more traditional school, so they're more subjects. So they all disappeared into their homes and are doing schoolwork, which is fine, but it narrowed how many people were available at certain times. So then we had to go more to specific activities.
Which are now?
So now then you have to pay for all of them too. Okay. So that's like in school, if you want to do art or music or gym and sports, that's all rolled into one package. But now if I want to take my boys to anything, I have to go here, I have to go there, I have to get together with these people, and I have to pay for all these things. A lot more driving around, trying to organize people to get together, and that breaks up your week. And you feel guilty that you're not doing enough. Or then you realize you're doing too much and you're never home, so you're not actually homeschooling. So it's a very tricky balance to get together with enough people and do enough of their interests, but also be at home, which was the point of homeschooling. So yeah, it's a fine balance.
It's a tricky point.
It's tricky. And I'm very lucky that there are so many homeschoolers near me. There's, you know, if I'm not out in the country with nobody, there's a lot of homeschoolers. So there's lots of opportunities. But again, everyone is still 15, 20 minutes, half an hour apart. So
it creates
a lot more driving, a lot more trying to get the people together, which everyone says, oh, I'm interested, and then not everyone shows up. And you have to find people that your kids actually want to get together with. So it's all these added factors that you don't really think of. But it adds to the challenge, and sometimes it's good for us to learn to work through those challenges, but sometimes it can just be a bit exhausting trying to figure it all out. And my boys aren't always interested in the same things too. So what do? I drag them all for one kid's activity, and then half of them are sitting there, and I drag them all somewhere else, and
So it's becoming much more
now
complex.
Now that they're older, it's more complex. We actually put the youngest in daycare just so I could focus on the older two a little bit, because I had a 3-year-old running around. What do I do with him all day too? So yeah,
So
just trying to
this is-
figure out where to put everybody to
this
make
is
it all
interesting.
work. And then you have to remind yourself all the time, why am I doing this? Because sometimes
So-
you have good days and bad, and everybody does, even in public school.
Yeah,
You get
sure.
along with your teacher, you have a bad day. So, I mean, nothing's perfect, but you always have to remind yourself why you're still doing.
So I know that you have been teaching yourself in the school.
Yeah.
So actually, you said that one of the purpose being that to give to your children much more time to approach different subjects, let's say reading or making basic calculation and so on. Are there any other reasons that you as mom like put on the center why you are picking up the homeschooling?
Oh, sure.
system?
Everyone has like lots of different reasons. For us, part of it was our faith, because we wanted to be able to talk about what we believe in with the kids more openly, not just after school or certain days of the week. And my boys, they're everyone's unique with their learning abilities or what they're sensitive or disabilities. So we wanted to be able to help them with that as well. One of mine is very anxious, and one of them's a bit behind on certain subjects. So we wanted to not make them feel like, oh, I'm behind everybody else, because they're right where they should be for themselves. And I found that really difficult when I was teaching, because I couldn't help certain students. I had to keep pushing and pushing with whatever the school was telling me. I had to keep moving forward. And we had hoped for flexibility, but it was easier with 2. By the time I had more children, it got a lot more to juggle. So some of the reasons why I'd started with more flexible schedule, and we could go on vacation when we wanted to, and that doesn't always happen with my husband's work. We own his own business, so he didn't get as much free time as he had hoped. But we are more flexible, being able to go to like museums and field trips and things, plays and concerts that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So that's been a good thing.
Okay, so it's basically
It's always good and bad.
Yeah, sure.
But
Like
everything
everything. There are
that-
up
yeah.
and down. So
But there's some challenges I didn't quite expect. It was a lot easier with 2. The third one made it much harder to
and
be able
maybe
to
it
meet
was
their needs.
maybe it was much easier when they've been small.
Yes,
they've
that
been
too.
2 and they've been smaller.
Yeah. So it might have been challenging just with 2 when they got older too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sure. So, so we heard Meaghan and her story, and these up and downs, and so please share your comments and maybe what you've been experiencing in your homeschooling practice, and what are your downs and what are your ups, and we are curious about hearing. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.